Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about what a healthy sex life looks like because many people grow up seeing affectionless, sexless marriages or in very religious cultures that are very sex averse, or with parents who hate each other, or with single parents or divorced parents or whatever, and they have no idea what a healthy marriage looks like, never mind what a healthy sex life looks like. So a lot of what I talk about is a healthy marriage overall in terms of attachment and interdependence and being secure and being kind and various things that you could read all about on drpsychmom.com or listen to in this podcast. But frequently I'm talking about unhealthy sex lives in here. So a lot of people find it much more useful to hear what is a normal, healthy sex life between, married people. So I will get into that as soon as I tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was about how my advice differs from religious advice in that we both say to have sex with your husband, but there is a key difference, and I will discuss that, or I did discuss that, in my most recent subscriber episode. So please do subscribe, and separately, you can join my Facebook group if you like talking about things like this. Facebook group doesn't get you the podcast. People keep asking me that. I try to make it as super clear as possible. It's separate. The Facebook group's separate and the podcast subscription is separate. So I can't blend those platforms. I can't give you a discount, but they are both very valuable in my estimation and very cheap for the sort of thing that you get. All right. So anyway, what does a healthy sex life look like? Well, the key word, and I know I say this a lot, is open-minded. In a healthy sex life, people can talk to each other. They could talk about sex, and they talk about their preferences. They could talk about having sex. They could talk about not having sex. They could talk about where their desire is or isn't at a certain time, or, due to feeling differently biologically, emotionally. Like, they just talk. They talk about sex. This is like something that couples do when they have a good sex life. There's some couples who don't talk about it and they're just on the same page. They're usually pretty young, new into the relationship, or they just somehow are, couples where they just automatically have the same conceptions of things, That's very rare. For most people, they don't have the same libido, certainly, and they do not have the same ideas about what sex is because they weren't raised in the same family and they're not the same gender and a million different things that make them separate people. But obviously, you don't need to have the same exact drive and the same exact preferences to be compatible and to be in a healthy relationship. You just need to be able to communicate. So in a healthy sex life, people are non-judgmental communicators, and they can hear what each other wants and likes and not take anything super personally and not shut it down and not stonewall and not say, oh, that's gross, I don't want to talk about that. So in healthy sex lives, both partners feel free and open and able to communicate honestly about their desires and needs. And this is something that you can learn, obviously, in couples counseling. And it's really what we do in couples counseling, at least vis-a-vis sex, is talk about it. Just talking about it can be really transformational for people who have never really talked openly about sex before. They just never talk about it, and then they have a fight or something, and then the woman will say something like, well, I never liked sex anyway, or the man will say, well, you've always been like cold anyway, and then they don't talk about it for another 10 years. That's very unhealthy. And in contrast, so what are sorts of things that people talk about? So a woman could say, oh, I'm getting my period tomorrow. I don't feel like doing it today. And the guy could say, oh, well, maybe, in a couple days we could do something for me. And she could say, okay, or no. And if she says no, then there would be a reason because okay, here, I'll give you a good analogy. So your kid comes up to you and says, can we play Parcheesi? You don't just say, no, I'm never going to play Parcheesi with you. If you don't feel like playing Parcheesi, you would, in a healthy manner, say, I can't play Parcheesi right now. Or even, I don't like Parcheesi, if you really fucking hate it, right? And you could be like, I will either play Parcheesi with you tomorrow when I'm not busy or tired, or let's play Sorry now. right? You wouldn't just tell your kid, no, go away, right? So that wouldn't be healthy. That would be like a really kind of shitty parent. And if you did that, then don't like go beat yourself up. Just go realize that, you need a different podcast and individual therapy, because probably somebody was always telling you, fuck you, I don't want to play with you. And now you do it to your kids. But you can't really do that. You can't just say no. It's fucked up. That's like, that's messed up, unless they have somebody else to play Parcheesi with. But right. But like if they really want to connect with you, then it really doesn't matter even if they have somebody else to play Parcheesi with, because they want to connect to you. So you can't just say no. You have to either do it, fine, suck it up, Parcheesi is not that bad, or you have to offer an alternative. You can't just say no. So this same sort of idea should be translated to tell you exactly what it's like in healthy relationships in terms of communication about sex. You may not want to do the thing they want, but you would offer something else, or you would defer it until a different time. The different time not being whenever I decide to deign to tell you that we can. It would be a specific different time. So I don't feel like doing it tonight. Let's do it tomorrow morning. Like that would be the equivalent. Right? And so you can't just see, in healthy sex lives, people don't just say no. They say maybe not now. How about in, 24 hours from now or whatever. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that if you don't like what they want to do, you get like just a couple of those, same as you would with friendship. So you got to like take the healthy relationships in your life and make analogies, right? So if a friend says you want to go for pizza, you don't say no. You say, okay. And if you really hate pizza, you probably go anyway, but you would, just to be like a normal, flexible human being that could be sometimes do things I don't want to do. Or if you really hate pizza, I guess you could say, no, let's go to Chinese. All right, fine. So we go to Chinese. We don't do nothing. And I talked about this in my podcast a long time ago. That was like, here's a, simple hack. If your husband wants to do something in bed that you don't want to do, literally do anything else ever, right? Like come up with any other fucking idea, the same as you would with a friend who suggested Chinese and you want sushi. So anyway, so that's one thing, is you can't just say like no, and that's not healthy. Healthy is to say, okay, usually I'll try, or let's compromise and do this, but it can't always be like that. Like in a healthy sex life, both people are trying to do what each other wants, like as a rule, the same as you would with anything else in your life with another human being, like your child or your friend. You are trying to say yes. You are trying to be open. You're trying to go with the flow. So that is what it would be like. Sex isn't like the special place where everybody's allowed to like be a complete asshole. Like instead, like that's how people act. They're like, oh yeah, sure, we can compromise about other things, but with sex, my boundaries are my boundaries. Why? Like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense, especially given that sex is the only thing that your partner can't do with anybody else. So it should be the place where you're the most open-minded and the most flexible. So one way to transform your marriage into a healthier one would be to grow more flexible and open-minded and say yes more often. And frequently, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're going to like, And if your husband, let's say, wants to go down on you and he's really shit at going down on you, then you would say, well, yeah, okay, we could do that. But the thing is I want you to like read up more on that, because or maybe we could Google something on it, because I don't honestly get off like that. And I don't like it. Sometimes it's too harsh. I get cold while we're doing it. I don't feel like you're really thinking about me. I don't feel connected. It's not when I'm excited yet. Like all these different things. That's what it would be for in a real healthy, open marriage. Not open marriage. I have another podcast on poly and open marriages. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about an open-minded marriage where people can say what's on their mind. Or if your wife said, I want to... I want you to go down on me. You don't like going down on women. Then you would kind of research why you don't like going down on women. You would do a deep dive on whether that's like a nice way to be, same as a woman going down on a man, and you would try anyway, It's not usually a problem, but with certain men, it's a problem. I still hear about it, that women date men who don't want to go down on them. Do they like somehow keep dating them? I have no idea why. Just probably because they have low self-esteem. They don't understand that should be a deal breaker. And I'll have a podcast coming out about that. If a man doesn't want to go down on you and you're listening to this, you're a single woman, it's a deal breaker. Men are supposed to they're supposed to want to think that you're real hot and sexy and want everything to do with your body. Men are supposed to have high sex drive. So when a man doesn't want to go down on a woman, it is really never a good sign. Usually there's sex itself is going to stop later on in the relationship also. But anyway, in a healthy marriage, people are coming from a place of yes in sex and everywhere else. And so a healthy sex life looks like something where people are talking about it, where they can bring up fantasies, where they could say, I had a sex dream and it involved this, this, and this. I always wanted to do this. If you see a sex scene in a movie, you talk about it. You say, oh, that looks fun, or oh, I would want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. Whatever. Like, sex is something that you talk about. I can't like underscore this point enough. You openly talk about it whenever it comes up. There's a sex scene in a book, you could share it with your partner. If there's something that you think that you would want to explore, you share it with your partner. If you had a sexual abuse history, you can still have a healthy relationship, but you have to share it with your partner. You can't be in a healthy marriage about sex, have a healthy sex life, if you unfortunately had a sexual abuse history and then you don't share that fact with them, because then they're flying blind. They have no idea why you're so averse to certain things and closed off and stuff. You can still definitely have a healthy sex life afterwards, but you need to give the partner a chance in hell, to understand you. And frequently, therapy can really help with this, because then you could get into couples therapy. Somebody else can help them understand how a sexual abuse history is impacting you, how that's totally normal, and how you guys can work through it. Also, if you've had other bad experiences with sex, you want to be able to share those. This is why I say you always have to talk about exes, in a healthy relationship. If you don't talk anything about exes, then your partner has no idea about like a whole basically so much of your life and so much of what you did. So in open communicative marriages, people say, oh yeah, I did that with so-and-so, I did that with so-and-so. And that's okay, because nobody takes it super personally. If you're very, very insecure and both of you have limited experience, many men who are late bloomers, I did a whole podcast about that, hate hearing about a woman's prior experience because it makes them feel insecure. But listen, she still has the experience. So it's better to know information than to not know it, to see kind of all about her as a person and what she likes and doesn't like. And it just gives you so much of an understanding. In sessions where we talk about exes, couples leave with so much of a better understanding of each other, and often they're just completely transformed. They're like, oh my God, he did such and such. Let's say a man who's always been begging his wife to go down on him, will say something like, well, yeah, in my earliest relationship in high school, she didn't want to get pregnant. So that's all we did. So she went down on me all the time, and it was a year-long relationship. And so the woman will be like, oh my God, I didn't know that. The woman may have thought about oral sex as and many women do that have limited sexual experience, as a cherry on top of a relationship, something that somebody might do every, couple months max in the honeymoon stage. To hear that this man had it happen all the time, her husband, is transformative. It's like a window opens in her mind. She's like, oh my God, that's something that he can, that was his whole sex life. So then if that was his whole sex life, then I've been thinking about it totally wrong. And it's not like she drops down in the middle of the session, starts giving him head. Things are not that simple. But at least it's it's like an aha moment, a moment of empathy, so that and the guy will be like, well, I thought I thought you understood that. Because I said, that I didn't lose my virginity till I was 18, but, I had this girlfriend in high school. She didn't understand shit. She didn't know that, So, that's just an example that, I made up. And there's many examples like that, and I just cannot. I'm trying to think of more things I could make up or more examples I could come up with to show you. Or, for example, definitely when there's been, with a woman, when there's been a bad experience, a guy pushed her head down. So frequently she won't go down on a guy because her first boyfriend, when she was 16 years old, used to push her head down. And so she associates it with fear and revulsion. So if a guy knows that, then he could be like, oh, wow, I totally get it. I empathize. exercise. We could talk about like never doing it in that position. We could talk about this. We could talk about that. Women might not even know there's other positions for that. I have an oral sex podcast coming up. That's why I'm so into thinking about the oral sex examples. Also, it's like half of what people complain about in sessions. So, I mean, that's always a big deal. But anyway, so the point is that if the more open you are talking about your prior experiences, their prior experiences, your current fantasies, their current fantasies, their current absence of fantasies, as many women have an absence of fantasy and their partner doesn't realize that that's true. It's true. Many women have zero sexual fantasies if they have low sex drives. But whatever the case may be, you got to talk about it like you would talk about every other type of thing, every other issue in your life. Another thing is a healthy sex life does not go very long in between encounters. That's the truth of it. You know, it's like real hard to have a healthy sex life once a month, you know, unless you're both very low libido people, in which case you're never going to be listening to my podcast, so it doesn't really matter. But for the people listening to my podcast, usually at least one of you has a high libido. And if you can't do it every few days or a couple times a week at least, how's it ever going to get better? You're not practicing. You're not comfortable with each other's bodies. It's not becoming part of your routine. It's not like something that you rely on each other for. You know, it's not like the same way as you know that you're going to talk to your partner about your day, or you know that you're going to eat dinner with your partner at night or whatever. Sex has to be like that. You have to know that it's coming regularly. This allows people not to masturbate. You know, and masturbation, as I've discussed, is not really good within a marriage where sex is not just awesome and omnipresent. If there's any sexual problems at all, then masturbation doesn't help anything. And I've talked about that ad nauseum in podcasts, which are like masturbation, the junk food of married sex, or vibrators, why they lead to bad sex, or porn in marriage, like a million podcasts about this. But the point is you need to know that sex is happening regularly. And for like a man in his 30s, let's say, that's like, you know, every other day, every third day would be great. Man in his 40s, maybe every third day, every fourth day would be great. Like, that's like the level at which, you know, somebody could not masturbate. After that, then of course they're going to masturbate. If you're only having sex once a week, you know, then a guy is definitely, at least, is going to masturbate. And once he's masturbating, then it's not, you know, he's not fully into you, really. It's not you, because he's also thinking about other things. He's probably looking at porn. I guess he could do it without porn. But I mean, if you're not interested, then it's a hard sell for somebody to not masturbate. And I have something coming up on that, or I think I have a post coming out on that. But yeah, the way for people to make their sex lives focused on one another is to have sex with one another frequently. And that's why I talk about things like try daily sex to reinvigorate your marriage. Try daily intimacy. How much better would your partner act, your high libido, high touch partner act, if they knew they were going to have sex every day or every other day? They would act a hell of a lot better, because their need would finally be being met and addressed. So you need to have regular practice and reliable practice for a sex life to improve. And you also have to have good communication. If you have both of those things, your sex life is going to be much healthier. Much, much healthier. And in fact, it would be pretty good. So you have sex pretty regularly, very open, talking about things. I'm not saying this is easy to get here, and therapy can really help you get to a place where both of these things are happening. But those are the two guiding principles. I like to make it simple to summarize. Open communication and frequent practice. That is going to make anything healthier, you know? Like, you'll get better at anything with that. So sex is no different. So, you know, discuss those 2 points with your partner if you want, you know? And if you're really struggling, then again, couples counseling, especially, it has to be with somebody who talks about sex. If you have sexual issues, will really help you with both of these. I also do have a sexologist, Heather. She is on my team, and you could reach out to schedule with Heather. She works in any state, because everybody can't work with me. Unfortunately, I don't have that many hours in the day. And she is great on her own, obviously, of course. And you can, it's interesting, because in initial sessions, what she does is exactly what I'm talking about. You know, she gets the full sense of what your sex life is like, and you start open communicating about it right away. She works with couples and individuals. All right. Well, so anyway, that was my plug for her. She's worth it. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great day.